Welcome to my podcast. We're sitting in a room just behind the castle. The weather is somewhat inclement, so this is a safer place from which to share the stories of Sparky, Mark Ellis, Downton Abbey location manager, and I've brought back John Gundill, who's still with us as our castle manager, and they worked together closely for some 6 years of the Downton Abbey TV series, followed by the film. So welcome, Sparky and John. Thank you for returning to my podcast, John.
Lovely to be back. Still here, still doing what I can, and wonderful to catch up with Sparky. I'm going to tell you something you might not know.
I doubt that very much.
This last Sunday was 10 years since the first episode of Downton was aired. So we have known each other for 10 years.
No, 10 and a half.
10 and a half.
Because they filmed it 6 months before that, John.
And the prep.
How was your maths at school?
Yeah.
We have known each other for 10 and a half years.
I did know that because Laura Carmichael, Edith, she messaged it, 10 years of Downton. Congratulations. I was like, oh no.
How amazing. Of course, when you started here, you were assistant to Richard May and
Jason Wheeler. Yeah.
And you started here as a really young person, and you've grown up with us.
Yeah.
And you've grown up with John.
With John. Oh, my word. Yeah. No, but it's been great, though. It's been what a fantastic journey. I think we'll speak for everyone. When we started with Downton, we didn't know what it was going to be. And then over the years, it just turned into this absolute monster. And it was fantastic. Really was.
Fairy godmother.
I wouldn't put you as that, John. But no, it was great. It was a really good journey, and everyone here is still great. I mean, I just turned up then, and to see Les there was just fantastic. So
I felt it was like a sort of school reunion each February, as everybody turned up again, slightly cold. You'd open all the windows, all the doors.
Yeah.
You'd removed the heaters from the rooms because they weren't period.
Yep.
Made the whole place absolutely freezing, and then complained about the cold.
Yeah, and I had to bring in extra heaters. yeah, we did do that. Yeah.
Have you worked on any other programme for 10 years at the same location with, to a greater or lesser extent, the same team of people? That one or two people changed on the production in the time, but you and I were together for 10 years. The majority of the crew were together for 10 years. The cast, obviously, the public know and see the cast, but we were very much behind the scenes. Have you done that anywhere else? No. Has that type of intensity of filming, given it started off at 40 days a year and then went to circa 70 days a year, has that type of intensity of filming at a real location, and by that I obviously mean not a studio, happened ever before?
I don't think so. I mean, certainly not in my career. It seems to be like a one-off. I mean, 70 days in one place.
I spent more time with you than I did my wife.
Yeah, my wife says the same thing as well, but I've never called her John.
I would hope not. You got married during
I got married.
And you've got 2 children.
I got 2 children and sadly lost my father as well. But yeah, it was an amazing, 10 years of my life or 7 years of my life is something I think about quite a lot. I mean, 10 years is a long time. I mean, as I said before, we never knew what was going to happen, whether it was going to be one series or, if it was then 2 series, then all of a sudden 3 series, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and better, and the following got increased worldwide, and all of a sudden, this, I said the word before, it's like a global monster just occurred, and it was a fantastic journey. I mean, it was hard. Don't get me wrong, there were times it was tricky.
There were some long hours, weren't there, and some long days. And I think in the middle of each series, I think as the number of series went on, you then started to take a proper break in the middle, because it was 11, 14 day weeks or bi-weeks, whatever you call it.
I think it was also, as the show got bigger, I mean, when it first started, it was mainly sort of Ealing Studios, the village of Bampton, where we did Downton, and Highclere. Then the show, we started travelling. We started going all over the place.
Well, it demanded more.
Yeah, exactly.
As the shooting had used an awful lot of the areas available in those locations, I saw the scripts become more elaborate, which enabled... It was feeding the public, and the public wanted more and bigger and better, but there was always a rooting of the show being based at Highclere. I trust. I
completely agree with that. Yeah.
About television, but there was never a desire to break the initial recipe, because that is what had made it successful.
No, completely. You know, it is. You know, the Highclere, you see the building. It's that well.
And people sigh and think, it's just so lovely to see.
And it wasn't, and it was really interesting because the first time I came here, it was a really cold, wintry, grey morning, and the house would just look dark and cold, and and didn't look inviting. But then I came in the summer, in the spring when we started shooting. And the sun was hit the side of it, and it was just this lovely golden, beautiful house, straight castle. I thought, what an amazing place. And the fact is, every time I come here now, I lose count how many times I've been up that driveway. You normally shout
too many.
You tell me off to go around the back, but and every time I come here, it's just like coming home. It really is. It's lovely.
It's all the people, isn't it? Because every day started with the catering trucks and breakfast, and John and Diana Moyes, the housekeeper, would find their way up for their bacon sarnie, whatever else they were having, and be very courteous and polite in order to have that breakfast with you. Followed by myself on a bike ride with the dogs who failed to move on towards the bike ride, but would stop out the catering trucks. And then Gwyneth would later on appear, who was married to Don the gardener in her little mobile, little machine with her little dog to have a chat to everybody. There was a lovely rhythm to the days, actually.
It was fun. And it wasn't... Well, it was work. Obviously, it was work. But over the years, it just became fun. The characters, Eddie the gamekeeper, Keith in his red truck, Pat the painter. It was just... You got to know everyone, and everyone helped each other out. It was great.
And that came about as a result of the longevity of the show being based here, and it wasn't a passing seasonal visit. And that's how you came to know the characters and the people involved, and how Highclere came to know the Downton family. And then it all merges together. But what people may not understand that have listened to Lady Carnarvon's series of podcasts is actually what your role entails. I trust you can still go and do your shopping and not be pestered. Whereas a lot of... You may think, say, that's for other reasons. But a lot of people involved in the show on the other side of the camera, their lives have changed significantly. But the filming day and what people see on the camera takes a lot of work from your department to actually make that happen. And it is an extended day, as Lady Carnarvon's alluded to. There's certainly a good hour before the cameras start rolling and a good hour afterwards. But what are you doing as a location manager?
Certainly on Downton, I'm sort of the go-between between production and the house. Throughout the series, we'd obviously try and do things bigger, do things better, bring in big camera cranes, vehicles with cameras on. And, and trying to shoot in a Grade 1 listed building, sometimes you've got to be careful. It takes a lot of planning. You've got fantastic pieces of art. You've got statues, littered around the house. And
littered?
Well, not littered. You know what I mean. Scattered around the house. Sometimes, with camera cranes, these things are heavy. We have like camera dollies, big lights. The lights get hot, and if we're trying to shoot in the saloon, for example, or on the staircase, where we've had several issues over the years, haven't we? Trying to shoot on there.
Yes, because as you say, the staircase, I would say that there is lovingly and thoughtfully placed a statue, but it clearly is littered there.
Littered, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
And yes, all these considerations had to be taken on board. Once we got through those multiple meetings, our days were framed by the filming Bible that used to come out, that we used to have to sit down and go through. But I think our interaction was always going to be that of potential friction points, because you as production were trying to do something that inherently the building couldn't accommodate.
Yeah, we were trying to push it to the max.
And we then had to find a way to make that work.
Yeah.
And inevitably, my most used answer to you was no.
I'd even get to the stage now where they'd ask me a question and I would say, I'm not even going to put it to the house. I know the answer's no. But I think over the years, and I think and I always think about this because I'm working on another show at the moment where they were asking me about breakages and did we ever break anything at Highclere when we were shooting there.
You did on the first day.
On the very first day in the library, and the blue chest fell off. It was bluey green. Turquoise, similar colour to yours.
Objet d'art, how about that?
Lady Carnarvon turned blue when she walked in and found the dragon.
I mean, accidents happen.
It was on the very first day before even shooting.
The funny thing was that my husband had walked round me, Geordie walked round the night before and said to me, darling, should we leave this here, do you think? It's rather a beautiful little casket on the nose table, the one which John was hiding behind in the Kanye West scene from the earlier podcast. And I said, I'm sure it'll be fine, darling, it's part of the house. And then by 9 o'clock the next day, you dropped a camera boom on
that was it. And I think, and I thought, oh no, we're doomed. But I think when you look back over the years, and bearing in mind, we went to 70 days and there was a crew of 80 people, 75, 80 people in the house.
On a normal
sometimes,
day. Sometimes a
more.
lot
If
more.
we had press or, another unit. It's a lot more people.
I think accidents happen. The only thing, there's one thing which will always remain with me is vaguely irritating. Do you think? Well,
was it the mahogany table?
Ironing the table.
Ironing the table. And then when the costume department said it wasn't us, I was like, "There's iron marks on the table,"
and you were in the front,
and we'd chopped it up to get it to the right height. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Did you find now bringing into play all your experiences, because you have carved a niche, which I'd like to think I've had a hand in period dramas because of the experiences you have gleaned over the years. Think carefully about your answer. Is Highclere an accommodating and welcoming venue to film at? Are we more inclined to assist film crews as against no names other venues that you encounter?
It's a difficult question because at the moment I'm doing another show, The Pursuit of Love, and we're dealing with a lot of sort of National Trust and English heritage houses, and they're very different. At least with Highclere, I'm dealing with one or two people, whereas for the others I'm dealing with lots of people.
A different management structure.
Completely different management structure.
To keep it clear here, Sparky. It's much easier for us, for you to ask the questions. Much simpler, and then for me to ask you to ask John, and then I'm
exactly.
there. Exactly. I think it's a clear
you always
structure.
knew where you stood. Here. I'd say to you, is this going to be possible? Knowing. I'm trying to think of an example where it was really, really testing.
I think in the saloon, sometimes you wanted to bring very heavy
camera
kit
cranes
into the saloon, and because it's a floor which is over some old medieval wells. There are weight limits there which don't always make it possible, and it's trying to think how we always want to help you get the best shot, but to have the house still standing, and if you created a hole in the saloon, not good.
I remember a particular question which you must have asked me half a dozen times, if once, about one of the underfloor windows in the recessed cellars at the front of the house. And somebody needed to be seen at the window. Can we use this particular window? To which I said, no, you can't, I'm terribly sorry. And that answer went back to the powers that be, and the question came back the next day, dressed slightly differently, but ostensibly the same. Could we use that window? No, you can't, I'm terribly sorry. Anyway, this played out for a few days, and then I said, right, okay, having been asked for the umpteenth time, come with me. Where are you taking me? I'm just taking you to show you something. I went off to my office, got a set of keys, unalarmed the cellars, took you into the cellars and said, there. And you said, what am I looking at? I said, you're looking at the back of the window that you think you can see from the front. It doesn't exist. Well, why didn't you tell me that? And for days I told you. So I didn't always give you the backstory. But that is how filming is. It is incredibly insistent on trying to achieve, because it is an art form.
Yeah, completely agreed,
You're bringing art into the reality of the real world, and that juxtaposition can grind, and there can be friction from time to time.
Oh, there's bound to be friction, because we're under a load of pressure to get the best results we can.
Which obviously John and I understood, Sparky, and I've every sympathy for the long hours you work and what you're trying to achieve and pull off, and from the long hours and the intense work, the beauty and glamour that you produce. And I find that transposition from what we see to what's the end result actually magical still. It really, really is. But there is, and we obviously understood that, and we're trying often. I think as we've gone on, I think John and I have sometimes got quicker at trying to offer practical alternatives when we can't actually achieve something, or to understand increasingly where you're coming from in order to share with you what can and cannot be achieved.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with that.
We've learned so much. I mean, I've learned a huge amount. Have you learned anything, John, over the last few years?
Yes, I have. I mean, it's been the most extraordinary. No. There's a punchline.
Yeah, hang on.
No, it has been the most extraordinary journey, which we all started out not knowing what genie was going to come from this bottle, and we all feel that we have a vested interest in what has become an amazingly successful programme, which then developed into a film. And it's been a 10-year period of all our lives, just over now. And that has been quite an uplifting experience. And of course, we know more 10 years in than we did at the outset. And we know by trial and experience what the house can now do. And I've had phone calls from other houses that have been asked about filming saying, could you give me a little bit of advice on this, because we understood you had certain challenges from the Downton filming point of view. But no one had done this before. You cannot go to a textbook to get the answer as to whether you can put a crane weighing X on a staircase built in the 1800s for a period of time. And did we set the fire alarm off? Yeah, we did. Did we...
That wasn't a good moment.
It wasn't a good moment.
No, well, what wasn't great is we evacuated the building and then realised what had caused it. So we let all the actors and actresses back in, whereupon the fire brigade turned up. I got the most fearful telling off from the chief fire officer, who immediately evacuated the building again.
And then you got some dirty looks from the actors and actresses.
And then, yes, I got a proper withering look from the said lady as she was taken off for lunch. But we learnt on a journey together, and what we haven't lost in that 10-year process is those experiences we've gleaned together, because there hasn't been a change yet, he says, looking at Lady Carnarvon, in the personnel that have had to deal with it. So we haven't lost the back catalogue of what we know works and what we know doesn't.
Yeah, which I think is important. I think, to have that trust straight away, to have that relationship.
I wouldn't. Not entirely trust, Sparky. You will always push the boundary.
Excuse me.
In the interest of art, I know.
No, but I think it does help, because you have got this. I know just how far I can push John. I think John knows how far he can push me, and I think we always try and come up with a solution, the best solution. Sometimes, I must admit, I think sometimes the ideas we come up with are ridiculous, and I think sometimes maybe we should be doing them in the studio, but we can't do that sometimes. So we have to sort of push the boundaries, and then it's down to John and yourself, Lady C, to say, guys, no, I'm not comfortable with that, which you didn't do very often, if I'm honest.
We wanted to try to make it work. I mean, we have some very funny moments. It's normally when you come with a new director and John and I say, what about Heaven's Gate, Sparky? It's the most beautiful, amazing place to film, which we know means that you're going to take half an hour to drive up there on location and have a look up, then half an hour back. So we've got rid of you out of the house for 2 hours.
But we did go up there, didn't we?
You did.
Finally got up there. Yeah.
We sent you up there.
Yeah. I think we wrecked that in all seasons. All weathers.
Yeah, we did.
Every year for the entire television series until there was a picnic scene up there.
But what I love about that place, as you said, we've been up there, it seemed like hundreds of times over the years. Every time you went there, the amount of counties that you could see changed. You would say, you can see 7 counties up here. I was like, what?
I had to make each trip slightly unique in its interest appeal.
But then I would tell people that you could see 7 counties, knowing full well that you couldn't.
But my most enjoyable memory was you coming to a recce for the film, with the director of the film who'd flown in from America, Michael, and you were looking at a particular scene under a cedar tree with a bench. And there was clearly an issue with the location of the bench.
Yeah.
And you were summoned over to the inner sanctum of the grown-ups, clearly asked, can the bench be moved? You then came over to me and said, can the bench be moved? And I said, genuinely, I'm terribly sorry, Sparky, we've had some issues with the public moving it, because it was a bench that played quite an important scene in the television series. Yeah. So I said, we've had it bolted down. It can't be moved. You then went back to the grown-ups and said, I'm terribly sorry, it's been bolted down. Okay. I was then asked by another member of the recce, could the bench be moved after you'd played your hand to the director?
Yeah.
And I said, certainly, walked over, lifted it up, moved it. And from there, that set the tone for our relationship for the film.
Was it. Yeah, brilliant day. Everyone laughed. Oh, how they laughed. Yes.
But you also filled my lunch one day, one Saturday, when it was curry.
Yeah,
lunch,
I did. Yeah.
And you asked... And I very rarely was invited for lunch.
No,
breakfast regularly.
That's not true.
Lunch rarely.
That's not true. I'd often invite you for lunch, and you'd always decline.
I'm very choosy as to who I dine with, and it was curry. And I took mine off to my office and started eating my lunch, and thought, good heavens, there's more than the odd chilli in here. I found 17 whole chilies in my lunch. And when I returned to thank the caterers, who were charming people indeed.
Lovely, I remember it clearly.
Several years. Rosa was absolutely crying and rather aghast that I was still standing because he'd put every chili in the curry in my plateful of lunch at your request. Do you have anything to say?
Well, you just said you liked it hot, so I thought I'll get him.
Late at night when I came to my car and it was completely wrapped in cling film with parking bollards on top of it.
That wasn't me. That was the team. That was the team behind it.
The night we both sat in the saloon after filming, when a piano had to be brought in. And because of the filming schedule, the piano couldn't be brought in at any other time, and it was needed for the first scene up the next day. Everyone had left.
Yeah.
The whole estate, except yourself, myself, and a piano tuner.
Yeah.
45 minutes playing the same notes on the piano.
I remember.
I then went off and got us a couple of beers.
Yeah.
And we sat on the steps.
Yeah.
And as we approached an hour of listening to this person tuning the piano, we both, without any consultation with each other, stood up and said, right, that's tuned, that'll do.
That's it.
We're going.
We're done.
And kick them out.
I remember that clearly. It was lovely, actually. We just sat on the stairs, didn't we? And just listened, and I was like, this is going on forever. Yeah. And that was it. No, we just literally...
I'm tone deaf.
And we
You
finished
came
our
from the
beer.
arts.
Yeah, we finished our beer. We said, right, that's it. Time to go. It's tuned. Bang. And that was it. But it was... I do remember that clearly, actually.
Was that just before Kiri Te Kanawa came to sing, probably?
Yes, it was in the
I think it was,
scene.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's where you've also seen the odd ghost, isn't it, sitting on the stairs?
I've experienced a certain number of interesting paranormal occurrences. I've seen the dogs definitely see something, and you were there then, Lady Carnarvon, which was extraordinary. I wouldn't say I'm a believer, and I think to fully take this on board, people need to be receptive to these ideas. But I've definitely locked up the castle in an evening when I know no one's in it and I have not entirely felt alone. And
Wouldn't be me hiding behind.
There is that I have to take account of every now and again.
I sometimes hide behind a cupboard, obviously, to jump out and say boo.
Which is hilarious. I run for the defibrillator to keep myself going. But I definitely turned, whistled and kept walking away without... It's not always best to look behind you. And in those situations, I think it's
One
best
of
to
my
keep going.
favourite photographs is the one I took of you both for a blog I wrote for April Fools, where I each asked you to hold a hammer or a whatever it was. Because the theory of my blog on April Fool was that Julian Fellowes was kindly writing the precursor to Downton Abbey in order to give the series enough time to run. He was going to start in Neolithic times, so we were going to build Neolithic houses, and you were practicing in case you were called on to be a spare part. I was going to say, but whatever, an extra. I think is what you mean. Is what I really mean, and that Sally was lining up the gift shop for fur bikinis to sell, and Chef was going to learn to make cabbage soup, so we could be completely with the whole film idea. But that was such a funny photograph, and I was writing the two of you into my little blog, crying with laughter. But so much of the time, actually, we've all been working together, the three of us, that I just mainly have thought of all the laughter and the smiles that we've had. It has been a wonderful few years.
Yeah, it has. That's one thing I, will take from here, just the laughter. I mean, something was quite, it was serious. We're putting together this huge TV show, but yet we could still have a lot of fun.
But
we did have a lot of fun.
I think that can only come, genuine belly laughter, I think can only come from a situation where people are confident with the people they're working with.
Agreed. Yeah.
Their professionalism, their ability to guide you accordingly. Yeah. And obviously it wasn't known with the first series, but it became a successful background to it. So we all wanted the success to grow. In the first case, the first series, we wanted it to be successful. We then wanted that success to grow. And I think and hope, from your point of view, there was an understanding that if we had a cause to say no, that was for a genuine reason. That wasn't just to be difficult with a process. And likewise, I knew that as our working relationship went on, you would only ask questions which you really had to ask from an artistic point of view. And I think we did achieve, I hope we achieved, we being the global, production and Highclere, the venue, some amazing cinematography, which, whether it be bringing in incredibly heavy cranes at night to light the place up, or...
And I was trying to think of the time, I think maybe season 3, season 4, started with a fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, reading the script, there was a fire on the gallery.
Yep.
Yeah. And we pushed it as far as we could with the house, with a bit of haze, even that. But it was clear from the outset that we were never going to be able to achieve that here. So then to build that in the studio, people still, didn't realise. I mean, and it looked fantastic, just that end bit of corridor. But there was no way we could achieve that here. I mean, that was always the thing I said. So I think someone asked me the question, I was doing a chat, what are the 2 things you dread at, opening up a script at Highclere, and it's a fire or a flood? Or then that was it. And to be honest, when you open up the script and there's a fire in the gallery, oh no! But I think we got around it. It worked fantastically well.
Well, you ended up bringing back a fire engine a bit later, didn't you? Because you wanted that from the outside.
And we blackened the windows.
We blackened the windows as well.
We did do that.
It looked good,
which you can do and did do. But the artistry which goes into filming is extraordinary, and it's something my previous life I had an exposure to television, but it was that of the coverage of live sport, which is very different to the creation of a drama. Not least a 13-hour day getting minutes of television.
Because I think that's the thing. People think it's the industry is really glamorous, and when you're on set, when you think when we were doing the film here, for example, when we were here for 3-4 o'clock in the morning to get the sunrise with the drone in the back lawn.
There lies another story.
It was just a disaster from the outset. It was just such a shame.
It was a beautiful sunrise.
It was a beautiful sunrise.
It's a shame it never got into the film.
The sun played its part. We just didn't do our bit.
I thought I'd played my part getting up at 4 o'clock,
you did.
to be honest.
Yeah, you did. And things do go wrong. Of course they do.
Absolutely.
But as I said, sometimes 14, 15-hour days and, whatever the weather, and you just go until you get it and you keep going, and sometimes the cameras break or the lights break, that kind of thing. You've just got to keep going. And it is stressful.
So I was thinking, if someone's listening, I think there's many people who are leaving university or wondering what to do, whether they go to university. I mean, the film business is very successful in this country, and there's ever more studios, and the role of a location manager I would actually have really enjoyed in some ways in a previous life myself. I think. Did you fall into it? Was that an idea?
I think I did fall into it, really. Originally, if you look back far enough, I was I was an actor, as John's telling me, a failed actor. But I did my bit. I just wanted a better standard of life, really. I was sick to death of going for auditions, not getting them or getting them, and then having to do another job to supplement my income. And luckily, my brother was in the industry, and he said, look, you know the industry, so why don't you come at it from a different angle? So I went to work with him on a very bad film. I can say that now, but it was a really bad film. And that was it. And once I got in there, I realised, actually, you know what? I really enjoy this. It's hard work, really hard work. When I started, I was earning peanuts. You just quickly, because I was a little bit older, when you realised, hang on a minute, if I really want to make a go of this, you've got to put the work in now, meet the right people, talk to the right people. And that's what I did. I look back now and think, wow, I think definitely made the right decision. And certainly doing period dramas, which I love. You know, I'm in the middle of one now, and I think people do phone me up because, you know, they know what it's like, you know, working in these amazing places. How do you protect these things from a film crew? How do you know what sort of, you know, budgeting, that kind of side to it too, and it's the logistics side of it as well. And they, you know, and it's great. You feel very lucky, you know, to be picked up. You know, the phone rings and they're putting together a team to make another TV show, another period show. And you're one of the first people they phone, and it's really lovely. And I've recently done something set in the 70s and 80s, very different to this. That was the thing Des that was on recently with David Tennant. That wasn't present day, but it was, you know, it's still period. Not quite Downton, very different to Downton. You know, some of the locations were tricky, you know, Holloway Prison, that kind of thing. Doing period dramas is something I love doing, and it's something hopefully I can do for a few more years yet.
So, Sparky, what do you think, what are the skill sets you need to be a successful location manager?
I think first thing you need to be able to visualize the script. So, you know, you're reading the script, you need to picture, you know, what the writer has got, what the director's, the vision they've got. And then you need to be able to sort of show that to the production designer, who I spend a lot of time with on this. It's been Donal Woods since day one. And then, you know, you need to be able to make sure that that amazing location is shootable. A bit like we mentioned Heaven's Gate earlier. You know, the amount of times you did go to recce Heaven's Gate to look at it for an amazing shot. The reason why we didn't do it that much is because it's really tough to get up there. So, and that's just as a, you know, an individual in a car. So to try and get a camera up there, to try and get, you know, the sound up there, to try and get lighting up there, it's an issue because you can have the most amazing location in the world, but if you can't service it, then it's pointless unless you take it out with a helicopter, you know, which you're not going to do. So it's having that ability to be able to offer up beautiful locations that are in the scripts, but also making them achievable. Because as I said, it's pointless. You know, you can offer up an amazing beach in the middle of nowhere, but if you can't get anything to it, you know, you can't shoot it.
So I think it's also about organisation, isn't it? Because
massively.
You have to be terribly
and you have to.
Presumably, you have quite an extensive photo library.
Massive, now huge, and it's also groupings. You know, you want to be able to group locations together. A bit different with Highclere, but on some other jobs, you know, you're not going to go to. Let's, for an example, I'm trying to think. If you've only got a little scene that takes place in a roadside cafe, but yet your main sequence takes place in a lake, you know, in a reservoir, you've got to make sure that they're close to each other, because the amount of time you lose travelling, loading up the trucks, you lose 2 or 3 hours, and you just can't afford to do that on a filming day because the schedules are really, really tight. You do push the location to the max because you have to, you know, because you've got to try and get your ambition across from the production, but then you've got to stick to, you know, the restrictions the location gives you. We all know, and certainly over the 10 years or 7 years, whatever it was, we all knew that we would push as far as we could.
It is always the location that provides that natural break. And I would say when people have rung me up and asked, I would say, you don't be afraid of saying no if you genuinely think, because we all know of production stories, Sparky, to be fair, where they've pushed it and it's gone wrong.
It's gone wrong. Yeah, we do.
And that's where the trust in each other comes, in that if I say no, the location says no, not me, then that is for a genuine reason. If you don't say no and then have sleepless nights about it, production will want to try and achieve it, and they don't necessarily know the constraints that you are concerned about.
But I think that's the location manager's knowledge and development relationship with you, John.
Absolutely.
When you start pushing it here and then we start saying, should we get the architects?
Exactly.
then it's beginning to say that we're feeling outside our comfort zone in terms of, it's usually to do with weight.
It's usually, exactly. And it is. I mean, now, you know, pretty much now on every job I go on now, I have a guy I phone up does all my structural surveys for me, because it takes that pressure off. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I'm not when it comes to that. That's not my. I just can't do that. But I think we managed it very well over the years, and I don't think, you know, we pushed it as far as we could.
Well, there were so many different places, from the sawmill where we've filmed different scenes in horse and carts, to some of the roads that you used, or the scene where Matthew sadly died down Lime Avenue, and managed to keep, I hope, all the secrets. So,
completely.
So nobody let the cat out the bag, which was completely key, and it's been a joy.
I think the single best decision made by the location was in series 1, when we were asked about Atmos, which was misting rooms. And we were asked, as one always is with filming, in isolation. We took a bit of advice, we spoke to some other properties, and in the end we said no. Given We are 10 years down the line, and once you had set the bar with Atmos, you would have been doing it
every year
for 10 years.
Yeah.
That was a very, very well-placed decision to say no. It didn't affect the outcome of the show, but I do think it would have had serious detrimental effects,
especially in the saloon,
to the chattels. And that is why you're here, filming at Highclere for Downton, because the hand fitted the glove.
Yeah.
And I think 10 years in of Atmos could have been
I remember the snow and the
snow in the library.
That was quite interesting in the proposal scene.
Yeah.
Of Matthew and Mary outside of the library. By the end, oh my goodness!
That snow
like Ski Sunday, didn't it?
Yes, that music was resounding in your ear as a brainworm. Yeah. But then when we got the housekeepers to get the hoovers out, what one never realises, hoovers create a tiny amount of downdraft that just pushed the snow away. So
As it has.
hoovers up.
Yeah. But we didn't have many sort of, catastrophes, did we?
Touching wood on that note, Sparky, it's been lovely to see you. Goodbye.
Yeah, just while I've got this opportunity, I'd like to ask Lady Carnarvon. I think I know the answer to this question, but over the years, have you enjoyed having the filming process? Have you enjoyed it more and more each year, or does it get, I don't know, tiresome? Not tiresome is the wrong word, but because I know it is a massive intrusion. There's 80, 120 people turning up every day to shoot inside your home, and I just wonder is there ever a time when you just think, oh no, I don't need this, I don't want this.
Well, no, it is an interesting question. In the very first year, there was no pressure, Sparky, because we always wondered whether anybody would watch the first series. So in that way, it was very relaxed. The second year was a little bit more intense, as was the third. And I think my learning curve and that of John's through those 2 or 3 years meant that as we then went into the next few years, I felt that we had come to another level, a better level of understanding. And what was glorious was the same crew coming back in particular. It made it so much easier. Everybody knew how it worked, where everything was, where to park the catering trucks. That familiarity meant that more hours could be given to the filming. And equally well that, when some people ask questions like, can we light a candelabra underneath the Van Dyke in the dining room? And we said no. Yeah. And then after 13 times of the same question, it was still no. Yeah. But we sort of moved on from the barrage of questions into a very straightforward way of working, I think, and experience. And I think experience and age and growing up together has been amazing. And I just think it's good fun. And you came and stayed. You came and stayed with me at Highclere.
Yeah, I loved it.
Magic. And I wanted to share it. And, Michael Engler's come and some of the producers, because it is a magical house. And to my mind, when you stay the night at Highclere and you open the shutters the next morning and look out at this beautiful parkland, I never tire of it. And it's trying to share that magic with yourselves, because then I think you better share it and understand it, and share it with the audience who have come to love Highclere as much as I do, although they think it's Downton Abbey.
The wonderful thing about that evening at Highclere, and I'm only saying this because John is here, when I arrived, I gave John my luggage to take to the room. I didn't tip him either.
No, but just finalising the circle, I then went and made sure that when you left the next day, I carried your luggage. That wasn't out of generosity. It was to make sure you weren't pinching anything. And to make sure you left.
John, have you got any other hilarious stories?
I doubt it.
No, I don't. I just hope we did our bit in making it possible at Highclere, because it was 10.5 years ago when that meeting took place, which I don't think you were at, actually, Sparky, because the grown-ups came to that one when they were looking for a venue for this concept they had. And who would have known that 10.5 years later that the concept is still alive?
I think it's given people such pleasure in lockdown, a sort of anchor and a point of reassurance and something to look for. It's given them. I so enjoyed it when it was on ITV. I forgot how much I enjoyed the ritual of a Sunday evening, sitting down with Downton Abbey on, and that was season 6, and it was such a shame when it ended. I thought, why did it end? But it was quite a large, moving cast of characters to bring together, and I know people, I'm sure, are hoping there might be another film, of course. Can you throw any light on that, Sparky?
I don't know. I couldn't.
I think he's trying to say no comment.
No comment. I couldn't possibly. I'd love. Who knows?
Watch this
space. I'd love there to be, and it'd be great to come back.
Will you still be the location manager if there is?
John,
would you come back and work at Highclere?
Might come back and work in the tea room. I don't know.
I wouldn't give you a job.
John, you look forward to Sparky coming back.
And his brake lights leaving. At the end of the day.
John, something upbeat.
Actually, we used to see less of you, actually, on a serious note, as the storylines got grander.
As his career took off.
As the storylines got grander. And you were elsewhere. I mean, Goodwood and the beach.
That's what it's all about. It's setting it up. You set it up, and then you have to do the same amount of prep for the next location. So then you bring in your team, whether it was Tom or whoever it was towards the end, would come in and sort of run the day shoot, and you'd be on to the next location.
I have one huge regret, Sparky, which is that when you went down to West Wittering, John and I were slow off the mark. We should have gone down and rented a little boat, come in off the sea, came cooing and completely...
Yeah, we did have some fun with some boats there, actually.
We should have done that.
That was a lovely day. It was a nice scene, actually, a really nice scene.
It was lovely. It was when, if viewers can't quite remember, it was when Jim Carter and Mrs. Hughes, Carson and Hughes, were paddling. Rolling their trouser legs off.
We were very lucky with the weather that day as well.
Beautiful. So that's my big regret, just to let you know.
Were you ever in it? Did you, John? Were you ever in it?
No, you never invited me. No, I think trying to help on the wrong side of the camera is the best thing for me, Sparky.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're definitely right.
Well, I'm just going to say thank you very, very much. Obviously, both of you could swap stories for hours, and it is a joy having you both here. Sparky, I hope you might soon be back if we get such a fortunate position. And John, you're still here, which is obviously most fortunate too.
Yes, we take it.
Thank you so much.
Great fun, Sparky. Lovely to catch up with you again.
Lovely. Thank you
and
very much.
all the very best for your current project.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for coming in, Sparky. I know how busy you are. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast. I don't want you to miss out on the next one, so please do try and press the subscribe button.